The Renault 5 feels like the small electric car that we've been waiting for because it's brilliant in all the important areas and it's sensibly priced. Has Renault delivered another outstanding product in the small electric SUV market? This is the new Renault 4, and in this review, we're finding out. Let's start back here. Now, the Renault 4 is very similar to the Renault 5, but even though the number is smaller, this is a bigger car. They're built on the same platform, but the Renault 4 is 220mm longer, 30mm wider, and 70mm taller than the 5, with a 120mm longer rear overhang. And while the 5 is a hatchback, this is more of an SUV, meaning that it's going to be up against a different set of rivals. It's similar in its dimensions to a Jeep Avenger, and other alternatives to this car could be seen as things like the Mini Aceman, the Volvo EX30, and the Kia EV3. Now, is this really much more practical than the Renault 5? Well, it certainly has a bigger boot. At 375 litres, this is around 100 litres more than what you get in the back of the Renault 5. You might see 420 litres quoted as the boot capacity for this car elsewhere, but it's the VDA figure which is more representative of what this can actually hold, and it's also that figure which is easier to compare against its rivals, and that is 375 litres. Which means, by the standards of this class, this is a very good boot. It's bigger than what you'll find in a Jeep Avenger and in a Vauxhall Mokka, but the very practical Kia EV3 is even bigger. This still, though, looks like a pretty practical boot compared to most of the rivals that it's up against in the small electric SUV class. And it isn't just the overall capacity, which is great about the Renault 4. It's the fact that, for example, as standard, you have a good amount of underfloor storage here. Now, you don't have a front boot, which is a shame, but at least you've got this 36-litre compartment here, which you can actually remove. And you can see it's a very handy spot for the charging cables, or if not the charging cables, then muddy boots or something like that, because it's very easy to remove and to clean. And the actual opening of this boot is very tall, very wide, and also really low to the ground. So that means if you've got to throw anything into the back, you don't have to lift it very high. It's very simple to put it in and to take it out again. And it's also a very good height for a seat, if you want as well. Now, if you want even more room than what's available back here, you can, of course, fold down the rear seats. Now, you might want to remove the parcel shelf first, which is a simple process. And even though there isn't a neat, dedicated area to tuck the parcel shelf away, it is still good that it fits very conveniently into the boot itself. And folding down the rear seats is very simple, even from the back. They only split fold 60-40, not 40-20-40, but they're still easy to throw down from the boot itself. It is a shame, though, that there is quite a big step up from the boot floor to those flattened rear seats, but still, overall, even though this car doesn't take up a huge amount of space on the road, this boot is very good. Now, the Renault 5 is a brilliant small electric car, but it doesn't have the biggest boot and the rear seats aren't particularly great either. So you can see that this Renault 4 has been created in part to try and offer the same brilliant package as the 5, but address those shortcomings in practicality in a different class of car. And we've already seen in the boot that it is usefully bigger than what you get in the 5. So what are these rear seats like? Well, the distance between the front and rear wheels is 80mm longer in this car, and as a result, the rear seats are more spacious. But that's not much of a triumph, because remember, the Renault 5 is a small car, and even by those standards, the rear seats aren't particularly amazing. Still, in the back of the Renault 4, legroom for an adult is actually pretty good, although it does seem like this bench is quite low relative to the high floor, and so with this sitting position, my knees do feel quite high, and there's not much room to jam my feet in under the seats in front either. But it's headroom back here, which is probably the weakest area of the rear seat space in the Renault 4. Now, I can just about sit up straight without my head being jammed up against the roof lining, but I don't have much clearance above me. And if you were particularly tall, if you were over 6 foot, then you would feel pretty cramped in the back here. And also, this top of the window line is quite low, so if I want a better view outside, I've got to kind of duck down to have a look out, which isn't ideal either. It is nice, though, that you've got a flat floor back here. That helps for foot space. But if you are sat in this middle seat, then it's raised up slightly higher than the outer two, and that means that headroom is even more restricted here. Plus, this isn't a particularly wide car, and so 3 adults sat side by side here really would be a squeeze. But you've got ISOFIX mounts back here, which is probably more appropriate for this kind of car because you're likely to have kids in the back rather than 3 very tall adults. And ultimately, an EV3 is far more accommodating in rear seat space, and it beats all other cars in this class when it comes to practicality. But compared to the other rivals in the small electric SUV class, really, the Renault 4 mixes it with the rest of them, and it isn't particularly terrible back here, but clearly it's better suited to people who won't be carrying lots of very tall adults in the back all the time. It's also nice back here that you've got this detailing on the roof here, which you also find in the new Renault 5 and is a nod to the original Renault 5, although this isn't actually what you'd find in the original Renault 4. But still, the French manufacturer has taken inspiration from its past to inspire this latest electric offering, like the Renault 5 did. Because of course there was an original Renault 4, which first went on sale back in 1961 as an affordable rural runaround and competitor to the legendary Citroën 2CV. And it was a massive success for Renault, remaining on sale for more than 30 years. Like the original, you'll be able to get a folding canvas roof with this new Renault 4. It's going to be an option on the higher trim levels, and it's electrically powered, operated by the touch of a button or by voice control. There are some other nods to the original Renault 4 in the design, like the 3-part rear lights, a roof-mounted mini spoiler, 3 lines sculpted along the door sills, and among the 6 colours available, some are also said to be a reference to the original. Down at the front, Renault has designed what it claims is the world's first one-piece illuminated grille. It's not available with the entry-level trim, which instead gets a painted outline and a painted badge, but it comes as standard with the top 2 trims. Now, while elements of the exterior design are inspired by the original Renault 4, this interior is very modern. And if it does seem familiar, then it's because, yes, it is virtually identical to the interior that you find in the Renault 5. So you've got the same driver display and infotainment setup, and just as in that car, it's very good here because with the driver display it's easy to see, the graphics are very nice, and it's got a good level of configurability as well. And this touchscreen infotainment system is pretty responsive and snappy, and also it gets Apple CarPlay and Android Auto built in, which is very good. Plus, just like the Renault 5, you've got this fantastic row of physical controls down here to help easily adjust the temperature or the fan speed while you're driving, which is way better than having to go into a touchscreen infotainment system and fiddle around with that. So that is all very good indeed. On the storage side of things, you have got quite a few options in here. Under this armrest, it's small but deep in the cubbyhole that it offers. There's another 2 trays here with this partition that you can remove. The door bins are a bit on the small side, but they're still better than nothing. And the driving position generally is really good in this car because the visibility is excellent out the front and down the sides of the car, and it's great having all of these stalks so close to hand as well. Now, this is a very common Renault design now, but it is great having your media functions, having the windscreen wipers and also the gear selector fall very easily to hand. And in terms of quality overall in here, yes, there are some plastics around, some feel cheaper than others, but for the most part this is a really classy, nice interior with good materials and an excellent feeling of build quality. So ultimately, an EV3 feels perhaps a little bit more polished overall up front, but compared to the rest of the small electric SUV class, this is really very good, particularly because it is cheaper than most of the other cars that it's up against. Yes, pricing hasn't been confirmed yet, but it is expected that in the UK, the Renault 4 will start at less than £30,000, with the entry-level model perhaps being priced around £27,000, which would make it about £2,000 more than an equivalent Renault 5. But in the small electric SUV market, that would be very competitive pricing indeed, undercutting a whole host of rivals like the Jeep Avenger, the Mokka Electric, and many, many others. Now, currently, the Kia EV3 is our favourite small electric SUV, but that starts at £33,000, which is likely to cost more than the most expensive version of the Renault 4. In terms of the trim lineup, it's likely that it will have the same Evolution, Techno and Iconic options as the Renault 5, mostly mirroring the generous equipment that's on offer in that car as well. So what's the catch? Is the range terrible in the Renault 4? Well, If you buy a Renault 5, you have a choice of 2 batteries. In the Renault 4, there's just one, but it's the bigger of the 2. So buying this car will get you a 52 kilowatt hour battery with an official range between 241 miles and 247 miles, depending on the specification that you go for. Now that is a little bit less than what you get in a Renault 5, but remember, this is a heavier car. You also get a heat pump as standard, and in ideal conditions you can get a 15 to 80% top up in around half an hour. And you can also have a vehicle to load function available with the Renault 4, which essentially means you can turn this into a massive portable 3-pin plug to help charge up a laptop or boil a kettle. So no, the range isn't terrible. And okay, it's not quite as far as what you can get from an entry-level EV3 at 270 miles, but compared to loads of other more expensive small electric SUVs in this class, what you get on offer from the Renault 4 is virtually the same. So there's one battery and there's one electric motor as well. And yes, it is the same setup that you get in the Renault 5. So that means you've got a 148 brake horsepower electric motor driving the front wheels, and the 0 to 62 mile an hour time here is 8.2 seconds, which is not quite as quick as an EV3, but it is quicker than plenty of other small electric SUV rivals like the Jeep Avenger. And this does feel really sharp off the line, and the performance that it offers is great all the way up to motorway speeds. It's very well suited to this car. And it's not just speeding up that's impressive in the Renault 4, it's slowing down as well, because lots of electric cars have very bad brake pedals that are really grabby or very inconsistent in the way they respond to your inputs, but you don't have that problem at all with this car. Now that is all very much like the Renault 5, but something different for the Renault 4 is the fact that you've got these on the steering wheel. Now these paddles help you adjust the level of regenerative braking in this car, and you can even trigger a 1-pedal driving mode, which means when you lift off the accelerator, the car can slow itself down to a complete stop without you having to touch the brake pedal. And it works really well in this car, and it means in town especially, it's very useful. It means you hardly ever have to touch the brake pedal at all. But in pretty much all other respects, this is very much like the Renault 5 on the road, which is no bad thing at all. And it's great to see that Renault has been able to translate the Renault 5 package into this slightly taller, slightly heavier Renault 4 SUV body with no problems at all. So the body control is still impressive in this car. The steering is really nicely weighted. The ride is impressive as well, and that's whether you're at slow speeds around town or cruising on the motorway, where it's also impressively quiet inside here as well. So really, especially by the standards of the small electric SUV class, this is really, really very good on the road. So it looks like Renault has done it again. The Renault 5 is a brilliant small electric car. This new Renault 4 is a brilliant small electric SUV. And yes, the two cars are similar. This is more expensive, but it's a more practical choice. And compared to the wider small electric SUV class, this is still very, very strong. Yes, a Kia EV3 is ultimately an even more practical choice, and it can travel further on a full charge, but then it's more money as well. And compared to every other rival in its class, this, particularly because of the fantastic value that it looks set to offer, seems to be a very compelling choice. Thanks very much for watching this review. If you want to see another one, click up there. Make sure you subscribe to our channel as well. And if you want to read more about the Renault 4 and every other car around, click on that link to go to whatcar.com.